I'm very lucky to have Brian Johnson here with us. He's a guy I've been following religiously for the last 6 months. Religiously follow, okay? Not just follow, religiously follow. And he is the most measured man in history. The most measured man in history. So in his body, he measures roughly 200 things every single day to make sure that he doesn't die. Okay? Pay attention. This is going to be important. Okay? So, guys, please help me welcome Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson! Okay, Brian, how are you doing?
Never better in my entire life. And it's also wonderful to be with you all.
Never better in your entire life. Hold on a second. I have, can you see those? So I have these things here, and I'm going to try to make sure that this shows. But basically I have this thing that says you're the most measured man in human history. I'm just going to look at some of the things in your body, okay? You have, you're top 1.5% in the world of 18-year-olds. You have, you bench press 240 pounds. You're top 10% in the world in liver fat. You have 85% below body inflammation. You're 99th percentile in sleep in the world. Can you tell us all your metrics?
Yes, the reason behind all this is I like this thought experiment. If we imagine having a conversation in the 25th century, so they're amongst themselves talking to each other, and they look back to the 21st century, the time that we exist right now, and they say, amazing what the 21st century did that allowed intelligence to continue to thrive in this part of the galaxy. What would they say? Like, just think about it for a minute. What would they observe about our time and place?
So what would people say about us in 2500, year 2500?
Exactly. In the same way we look back and we say, wow, they discovered germs that caused infection and death, and we discovered penicillin, and we discovered atomic reactions and physics, and
not some in LA.
So what would be right now the question?
I don't know, maybe they said there was peace between China and US.
Which is actually, that's legit. It's don't die. The entire philosophy of the 21st century is in 2 words. And it's the first time Homo sapiens arrived at a point in time where you could say with a straight face, we may not die.
So, Brian, let's ask the audience before we start the conversation, how many of you believe that it is possible not to die? Raise your hand. Okay, let's say it's 30. How many of you think that we will for sure die and that it's impossible not to die? Okay, so you're in the minority. So let's try to prove them otherwise, okay? So first of all, Brian, how did you get to this point in life where you are so fascinated with this idea? Because if I look at where you were before, okay? If I look at where you were before, this is how you look like. This is who you were. As a technology executive, probably the most boring thing in the world, what were you doing?
I feel so much empathy for this guy. I call him Evening Brian. And in this moment in his life, every day at 7 p.m., the world had crashed down. I was building Braintree Venmo. I was in a struggling relationship. I had 3 little babies. I had chronic depression. I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And at 7 p.m., the only thing he could do to soothe his pain of life was eat. And he couldn't stop himself from doing it. And so after a few years of doing this, one day, tongue-in-cheek, I said, Evening Brian, you make my life miserable. You're fired. You can no longer eat food between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. And it was the only thing I ever did to gain leverage against myself, against my own self-destructive behaviors. And, he's not a bad guy. He just was struggling deeply. And it was like the worst moment of existence. And so I love him and I feel sad for him. I wish that I would have had somebody in my life that would have reached out and said, I can help you through this process.
So you fired yourself from making decisions about your life. So who did you hire?
think the most interesting thing about Blueprint, people think Blueprint is about diet, health, and wellness, and truly not.
So what is Blueprint for those that
Oh,
don't
I'm
know?
sorry. Okay, so what I've been doing for my health and wellness, we've built an algorithm that takes better care of me than I can myself. And so we use digital navigation because we get destinations easier and faster. Our planes fly on autopilot. We use algorithms because they're better at it in certain ways. I wanted to build an algorithm that was better at taking care of me than I can myself. And that's what we've done.
Interesting. So you had this analogy, which is if you want to fly a plane, right? You can do it manually, go right for 5 minutes, then go left for 5 minutes, and then go right for 5 minutes, and maybe you'll reach your destination, but it's not efficient. And your analogy is, what if there is an autopilot that goes right for 0.1 seconds, left 0.1 seconds, like makes 500 decisions, minor decisions, but then you're a very stable plane. So you're running your life like an autopilot plane, while I'm running my life blind, going left and right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I actually had this thought when I was flying an airplane. I got my pilot's license, and I was in the air one day, flying with my hands, like up, down, left, right, trying to keep it perfectly pegged. And I thought, this is so much effort to try to keep the plane in the right position. I flipped on autopilot and I just pegged it. And I thought, what if I could build an autopilot for my body? And that then invited this measurement that we think about like a democracy was this liberation from monarchy or decision making. And then we had civil rights, which said we should have more freedom. We've been marching towards letting more forces, more power, more intelligence speak. And so I wanted to do the revolution inside of my body and say, what if I liberated my organs to speak for themselves? So my heart could have equal say what to eat, and my lungs, my pancreas, and my liver, and my rectum, not just my mind, because my mind is a tyrant. It's like the British monarchy to the US. It was like, it's a much more powerful system if my body can speak and make decisions, because my mind has been silent.
So this is like a big idea, because for all of our lives, it's our brain and our stomach making the decisions for everything in life. Oh, I feel hungry, I eat whatever I get. But for you, you say, let me measure my heart, let me measure the magnesium levels in my blood, and if it's 0.1% down, I'll just get an extra magnesium. Is that how you live?
That's right, yeah. So I became the most measured person in human history. We took all the data, we looked at gold standard scientific evidence, we designed a protocol, and my only responsibility is to say yes. I implement it with precision. And so the idea here is if we just have a thought experiment, we say, well, what is the potential of technology in the next 20 years? All of us in this room, without even thinking about it, we're going to assume technology is going to be better. We'll have these crazy ideas, but none of us are going to assume technology is worse. If we say, what is our potential? We're going to assume we're going to decay, decline, and go to death. We don't assume humans can become better.
Yes.
It's never impossible. But the algorithm basically says, why can't we, in this moment, imagine that we can improve at the speed of science and technology like our technology does? And it's such a flip in our consciousness. And again, you have to use these thought experiments to jump in between centuries, because if you just try to sit now in this time and place, you'll miss it. And so, for example, like when you ask the audience, like, who believes in blank? If you read history, what generation has ever understood their time and place? None. They've always been behind. You have a few people who see something and they raise it and everyone says, that's stupid, or that's silly, or that's impossible. And then it happens and the future generations are like, oh, of course, that's obvious. And so if you raise your hand and you say a given thing, realize you're likely trapped in our time and place and you're blinded to the realities. So the thing for us as in this moment is to be extremely cautious about the opinions we express, because history will prove us wrong otherwise.
Wow. You may be right. In my community, we have a saying that says, most people die at age 27. We just bury them at age 72. And the idea is basically, after age 27, you just cannot change your life. That's it. You're doomed. There's no radical change that happens in your life after 27, and so we bury you at 72. And I think a lot of people in the world probably have that in their communities, especially in villages. What do you say to that?
So we are all culturally programmed to want certain things, and we don't really know why we want certain things. But we can say we want status and prestige and wealth and we want these basic things that people compete with. Those are the games that society has given to you and the default mode. There is a new game to be played, which is don't die. And this is the thing that when you talk about, basically you're identifying age progression as this path towards death.
Yes.
And that's what you're looking at.
Yes.
And so what the assumption is that it's inevitable, it can't be changed, but if you
It's right here on my t-shirt, Brian. Death is right here, and this goes to death. That's what my t-shirt means for the last
so like
5 years.
this is amazing. So yeah, stand up like this is so beautiful, right?
Die, don't die. That's literally what it is.
This is really beautiful because if you capture the 21st century, this is where we're at now, and you say, what is the 21st century going to say? Maybe it's going to be this. And for all of you here right now, you don't want to miss out. You don't want to be the people in the history books that didn't get it, that didn't see it, that didn't, you miss out on the benefits.
Interesting. And I may change my t-shirt after this. Okay, so let's explore for the next 5-10 minutes, how are we not going to die? Because I looked at your food choices, okay? And then let me see. So this is how you look now, okay? So this is how you were. This is how you are now, doing all the experiments in the world to be able to control sort of your life. That is your son as well, who's joining you in the journey. And this is everything you eat in a day, right? This is like everything. As we can tell here, we have broccoli, it's all vegan. You have olive oils, you have dark chocolate, you have a lot of pills. Walk me through your food. Because it all starts with food, right?
Yeah, so first, that's my son. And there's been a lot of controversy in the media that I keep him in a dungeon in a 10 by 10 cage. It's actually 8 by 8.
Okay, you'll get used to his sense of humor. He doesn't mean it. Okay, so
I do.
Okay, so your food, okay? My team, I think Lorena right here, she made a video about you on Nas Daily. She tried your food. This is not tasty. You eat this every morning.
Wait a second, who said it's not tasty?
So what is in your food?
Yeah, okay, so the principle behind this is because I have this extensive measurement, we can measure what things accelerate aging in my body. You can measure the speed of aging just like a tree roots on a tree. So I currently age at 0.69, which means for every year that passes, I age for 8 of those months. I get 4 months for free. For September, October, November, December, I'm not aging. And so my current speed of aging is slower than the average 10-year-old. So that's why it's meaningful to do this. So what we start doing is looking at diet and exercise and everything else and say what actually accelerates speed of aging and what reduces it. And so the protocol is basically I change the frame to say anything that increases my speed of aging is violence. Now violence is a strong word, but I wanted to say it's self-violence, and I wanted to take myself to a zero violence level. And that's what we've been trying to do, is to say if somebody were to be on the extreme and try to basically do a 4-minute mile or fly over the Atlantic or do something that no human has ever done, what would be the demonstration? And what I've tried to do is to say, in this time and place, what is scientifically possible with our biological abilities to slow our speed of aging?
Okay, so to understand this correctly, if I live for 12 months, I age 12 months. But if you live for 12 months, you age 8 months. So you have 33% more life today because of your food and your lifestyle.
Yes, also, you can be aging faster than 1.
Aging faster than 1, that's scary.
So if you're 1.07 or 1.2, if you're really burning hard in life, and you know these friends in your life, right? If you see people aging very quickly, their clocks are these high RPMs. And so it's like you know your weight, you know the number of followers you have, right? Know your speed of aging. Well, in my case, I know my 19 erections, but in your case, know your speed of aging.
Okay, I'll talk to you about erections in a second, but how can I know my speed of aging?
It's a company called True Diagnostics. You do a finger prick, a blood spot, and it will give you a speed of aging.
Just like a number, from like 0.6 to like 2.
Exactly, just a number. And if you're over 1, you are 57% more likely all-cause mortality incident in 7 years. So it dramatically increases your chances of death if your speed of aging is higher.
Okay. So because of your food intake, which is roughly 2,200 calories, now you're aging 33% less. But you also take all these pills, Brian, and if I show this to my parents, they're gonna be like, this guy is unhealthy. There's nothing healthy that looks about this. How do you reconcile health with pills?
First of all, when you're trying to pioneer a given thing, and you're all doing that, never be moored by convention. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. In fact, if they think something, you can just do the exact inverse and probably find greater truth. In this case, what we're trying to do is we're posing a scientific experiment to say, if you implement perfect science right now, you're trying to address every organ in the body, what does that look like? No one's ever done it before. And so you can expect people's reactions to not be comfortable with the idea or to reject it at a hand. But that's what we're trying to do is, so every supplement I take has an endpoint where we can measure and say, is it working or not? So it just breaks norms, and people reject it at a hand normally.
So how many of these do you take per day?
111.
So 111 pills per day. And this is another interesting thing. When do you finish eating every day?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. So you've already done with your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 111 pills. And then now you're just fasting. Sorry, I'm not normally very speechless, but this is interesting. What I love about this is there's a guy who's crazy enough to challenge convention. We don't know if you're right yet, but it is interesting enough to get us to think. So your food, you're rethinking the food. Because if I compare your food, this and this, it is definitely healthier than this, right? Our 7-Eleven, or even the restaurants that we eat. What do you think of the food that is like at a normal restaurant?
So back on your point, I would say, I say this tongue-in-cheek, Blueprint is the best health protocol built in human history. Prove me wrong with your data.
Okay, so now we understood that to get to live forever, you need to eat healthy. Got it. I don't think anybody's gonna get the pills, but we can start with the broccoli, okay? The next thing is, you exercise. Talk to me about your exercise.
I do 1 hour a day. It's a combination of stretching, low rep weight. I just move my body every day, try to flex and stretch every muscle of my body.
Every day?
1 hour every day.
And you look like a bodybuilder, but you're not really a bodybuilder. Like, what do you think of the bodybuilder movement? Is that healthy? Is that unhealthy? The people who take exercise to the next level.
The data would have the answer. I mean, this is the thing. Like when we were first talking about the data, I post like 20 things about my protocol. Like I'm in the top 1%, 1.5% of 18-year-olds, elite 18-year-olds in my cardiovascular capacity. My total bone mineral density is the top 0.02% of 30-year-olds, aged men. And like it goes on and on. And so if you take any one of these measurements and you say, I don't like this one for whatever reason, fine, there's like 20 more to reference. And so this is the thing is every single one of these things is measured with data. So for example, like my muscle and my fat, I'm in the 99.5th percentile for optimal. And so everything is based upon population level data. Everything has a marker. None of it's my opinion.
Got it. So you don't exercise based on what looks good. You don't say, I want a 6-pack or a 4-pack. You just like measure every muscle and you say, if this muscle is healthy, then I keep exercising it. And based on that, you decide what the workout is.
That's right.
Okay, so now I eat food and I work out every muscle, not for looks, but for health. And then the next most important thing is this. Talk to me about this.
The sleep.
So why is sleep so important?
Okay, yeah. So I think I'm potentially the best sleeper in the world. Potentially. I achieved perfect 100% sleep using Whoop for 6 straight months. And it feels amazing to get good high quality sleep. And I wanted to show just like the 4-minute mile, that when one human demonstrates something, other humans can do it too. And I wanted to show you can get high quality sleep.
So just to explain to the audience what a 4-minute mile is, in the 1950s or something, one person, everybody thought it was impossible to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Until one person did it in the 1950s. And immediately in 1951, 10 people broke the record. For some reason, that first guy broke the mental barrier that you can run a mile in less than 4 minutes. And now what is the record? You know? Probably like 3 minutes 30 or something like that. But you just need one person to do it to prove for everybody else that it's possible. So what are you trying to prove to us? What is possible?
That behind grind culture is the assumption that you're going to die. And your immortality is going to be achieved through your work. That's society's assumption. When you sleep, you're suggesting that you're potentially your own best product. You potentially can achieve immortality, not your work. It's a shift in mindset. We have to understand, grind culture is so consuming. And the stories about sleeping under your desk, about people telling lore about so-and-so did blank for 2 days without sleep. We tell these stories and we propagate these ideas, but it all is basically death code and driving you to the grave. So it really takes a fundamental shift of identity because there's so much pressure to grind.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to challenge you. You know I'm a big fan, but I'm going to challenge you for a little bit. By the way, this guy was my boss. Not many people know this. I used to work at Venmo. He acquired Venmo in his company called Braintree. And then he sold his company to PayPal for $800 million. And you made a couple of $100 million. So you did grind for 10 years until you became so filthy rich that you can sleep. So what about us?
This is when I look at Evening Brian and I see the pain in his eyes. There is a way for him to build Braintree Venmo and sell the company for $800 million and not destroy himself. I feel so sad that I sugar cereal growing up, that I was in the sun nonstop, that I drank soda, that I didn't sleep, that I was depressed for a decade. I ruined my body and mind. And was it worth it? I don't know. But I would say you definitely can be ambitious and have big goals, but you do not need to destroy yourself in the process.
And so what's the optimal amount? Should we sleep for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours? What does the data say?
Yeah, 8 hours is a pretty good benchmark. But even in this room, you're in a community of people. If you had support among each other, that you wouldn't do late night events that have alcohol. You wouldn't share the expectation that you would say, my bedtime is 10:30, and we're all going to honor that, and I'm going to keep you accountable like I'm going to be accountable. If you ease the pressure on each other, that you can go to bed on time, it's actually cool to go to bed on time. It's okay. It's actually a good idea. I don't know about you, but nothing changes my conscious experience in life more than sleep. You're basically half dead when you don't sleep. But we applaud it.
Amazing. Okay. I'm going to allow the audience to ask some questions, but before that, I want to talk about a couple of ideas, okay? These are things, graphics you made, right? Which is, when do we make bad decisions in life? And unfortunately, this is true. So many careers ended right at this point. So many calories were consumed right at this point. Why do we get worse at making decisions at night?
I don't think this graph needs explanation just by the reaction, right? We all know this is true. We're worn down. We want reprieve from our stress and our suffering, and food gives us this temporary hit. it was hard for me not to feel shame and guilt. It was hard for me not to be so upset that my pants were so tight. I had to unbutton the top button, and feel like I just feel awful about myself. But when I was able to decouple that it was a result of all these other actions, I can say that was actually a different version of me. It empowered me to think about myself differently. So now I was able to break myself out and say there's Morning Brian and Dad Brian, there's Ambitious Brian, and we got together in a big room and had this big conversation with all the Brians. What are we doing here? And so it really helped me with my own identity to not get beat down by myself.
Okay, I'm going to allow people to ask questions. And of course, there's a lot of questions. Let's see, make a question difficult and sensitive and hard. Okay? Go. Stand up, scream.
So a lot of people think when they want to do something positive to take a step forward and start some new habit. I think oftentimes the best way is to stop bad habits. So find the worst version of yourself, the evening Brian version, the one you know is the one leading you to bad habits. Fire that version of yourself and get some momentum. Sometimes it's so much easier to stop that bad and go forward.
So who here drinks alcohol? Raise your hand if you drink alcohol. That is probably the easiest thing you can start with, is to just cut alcohol. Would you agree or disagree?
Yes.
What about meat? Should we turn everybody vegan? Sensitive question.
So, I'm vegan because I hope that compassion is a scaling law with intelligence. Because while we are alpha now, well actually that's not true, we used to be alpha, we are no longer alpha. I hope compassion rules. That said, you do you.
Okay, diplomatic answer. Let's go, this guy. Stand up, scream.
11 a.m. No.
Bro, it's like 12. He's not hungry.
I do. I mean, I'm basically hungry almost all the time, yes.
Isn't it counterproductive to be hungry? That's the question.
Change is hard. Being visible is harder. So I'd rather take this version of existence than I would the other side of having too much food.
Okay, you, next. Stand up.
I left my mother's womb 46 years ago.
Okay, she says, I have one life to live. I'm going to maximize it. Screw this. I'm going to live like crazy. What's your answer?
The 20th century wisdom would say live fast and die young. 21st century wisdom says don't die.
Okay, no more Fast and Furious. Okay, let's go there, that guy. Stand up, scream.
I do a thought experiment. You can tell I love thought experiments. I imagine hanging out with Homo erectus 1 million years ago, and they're holding an axe. They haven't innovated the axe in 1 million years. And you pose the question to Homo erectus, dream with me, and tell me what it is, aspire, what does it mean to be human? What are we look forward to? Homo erectus would never be able to talk about physics, or about the molecular world that we can't see, or computers, or all the things we have today. And so I spend the majority of my time exploring my ignorance. What don't we know right now? And you know, after billions of years on this planet, we're baby steps away from superintelligence. It's unfathomable to us what this is going to mean. We cannot see it. And so it's a very different moment to think. And it used to be the case that knowledge was the most valuable thing a person could have. We go through schools, we learn the grades, and you speak, and if you're respected, if you know something, a certain thing. Intellect, going forward, is going to be what you don't know. It's the ability to step into the unknown. And so it's going to shift everything it means to be human, our identity, what actually is valued, and how we pursue intellect. I spend the majority of my time there, because I think that's really where we're at, and we need to try to pioneer this frontier.
Amazing. Last one. We will go, this lady. Just like one question, go fast.
Okay. How did you develop passion for making time
Sorry, develop my passion for nighttime Brian.
How did you develop
Oh, compassion.
One hell of a question.
It is so hard to be human. It hurts. And we're all in pain. We all suffer. We put our best faces on because that's what we do. But behind pain. We think we're individuals, we're not, we're one.
And on that note, Brian, now you understand why I'm such a big fan of this guy. And you gifted me a t-shirt, Don't Die. I never wear other people's t-shirts, but I'm going to wear it now. Thank you so much, man. Brian, this was great. Thank you. That's a pleasure.
Okay.